This podcast is recorded on stolen and unceded Aboriginal land.
We acknowledge the First Nations and elders of this country and join their calls for justice. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
Do something as stupid as get into politics. And I said, I'm just doing it so I can f*** Barnaby Joyce.
Hello, lovely Serious Danger listeners. This is Serious Danger, the podcast about green politics in Australia. Not an official Greens Party podcast, though. Produced by Michael the Griff Griffin. And this is a bonus candidate episode we are doing, highlighting some of the Greens candidates running in seats across the country. Because you asked, we delivered. There's a federal election coming up. We want to hear from different people. And in this episode, we have a return guest, a return candidate, comedian Mandy Nolan, who is running in one of the most winnable Green seats in the country in Richmond. She's also a fellow Mullamite, so we have that connection, which is why it's just us. But welcome back to the show, Mandy. Lovely to have you.
Oh, thank you so much, Emerald. I'm thrilled to be back on the show, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good to be here.
Yeah, we can get it. Yeah, we. I mean, I was watching the little clip that you posted from your See Mandy Run kind of doco/comedy special, and one of the bits that really stuck with me as someone who is from Mullumbimby, aka Mullum, is the bit where you come across someone at the markets or somewhere out in town. You're like, is that my shirt? Is that from Vinnie's? I think I donated that, which to me, you can't get more local than that, being like, that's my stuff. That happens to me as well. I'm like, did you get that from the Silver Lining? I think I gave that to the consignment store.
That's totally what it is. Yeah, that was hysterical because it wasn't just my shirt. Because I've had like 5 kids and I was looking at it and it had a really saggy neck. That's how I worked out. And I went, oh, that's the one I used to, that was my breastfeeding shirt for when I was just lying around the house. I love that there's this random dude in my old breastfeeding shirt.
Yeah, he's like, lots of room around the neck, just how I like them.
Yeah, and he might get the positive vibes of breastfeeding just from wearing the shirt.
You would hope so. That warm glow, that motherly glow.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've had you on the show before, but I checked and it was almost exactly 3 fucking years ago because time flies, actually wild. It was back in episode 13. So you were really one of the first guests that we had when we were a little baby podcast. Now you are back. People may not have heard that. They may have been living under a rock and not know much about you. Can you do a quick, the top line intro to Mandy Nolan? Who are you?
Yeah, Mandy Nolan, comedian turned Greens political candidate in the super winnable seat of Richmond. Richmond, not in Victoria, as some people often think. Richmond runs from Ballina to Tweed Heads. It has Byron Bay in it. So it's a massively diverse electorate. I've been in this community for over 30 years. I was walking around the other day. I was going, I think I've fundraised and done so much community action here, even for the cenotaph for in Byron, to the koala one recently, to when I was out at UCI the other day and someone came up and went, you fundraised for us and got us the Starlink because we had no connectivity. So I decided to take my years of using my comedy superpower for running fabulous events and fundraising to go, you know what? There's a point where a community shouldn't be throwing a gold coin at a bottle to raise money for essential services, infrastructure, support, and the kind of climate change mitigation that we need. Let's do it at a political level and get at the table. So I bring I guess this region's pretty kooky, so I guess I'm fairly representative of mother of 5, stand-up comedian of 40 years this year. And I think I bring a bit of a fresh voice, I guess, in the sense where people are really jaded with politics as business as usual.
Yes, I think you do too.
Yeah.
You ran a fantastic campaign in 2022. You achieved a 4.9%, almost 5% swing in a federal election, which is pretty significant, really high profile. Unfortunately, you lost. Which is a bit of a bummer.
Sucks, Emerald.
Yeah.
For anyone who's doing this, people say, what is it like? And I go, it is the hardest. I've never done anything harder, and I'm 57 years old. I've got 5 kids. I've been a single mum with who lost her rental when she was pregnant with the second child. I've done some hard stuff. This is hard. And losing is really hard. Like you kind of fall off a cliff. I think I had a bit of not a nervous break. Well, maybe it was like a nervous breakdown. That's like a really old fashioned, but I think you go through a lot of catharsis, because to actually be running in a campaign, if you don't care deeply about the outcome, then you shouldn't be doing it. Like, it is so wedded to the urgency of getting other voices and getting green voices at the table at a critical time when decisions are being made, because it feels like the tipping point isn't just about where we look at for emissions targets. The tipping point is directly related to who sits at that table. So if this is a hyper-marginal seat and I'm a candidate who's able to get through, it's not just me. I'm taking people with me. I'm taking, the next generation of kids that shouldn't have to mop up after us. So when you lose, wow, I really felt, that sense of despair. But then that was quickly followed by, the understanding that in politics is that you get close. Like, I'm so close, they can feel me breathing on their neck, and I'm not going to I'm not going to lose that momentum. So now we only need a 1.8% swing, or according to the ABC psephologist in a report recently, a 1.3% swing. And we could get this. And, from what we're hearing, Emerald, it's, from people on the street, we're having lots and lots of door knocks every weekend. We just did a big event with Bob Brown, which was amazing. I did a fundraiser up at Tweed. We had over 1,000 people there. Like, we are getting people.
Holy shit, that's big.
Yeah. I want to show people that they're powerful. I want to show people that what they care about matters, and that, don't give up. Don't think that, you can't be part of creating change. And so they're the conversations that we've been having. We interestingly just I've got a billboard up too this time, Emerald. We didn't have one.
I saw your billboard, and I'm like, this seems to be emerging as a bit of a slogan for your campaign. I was very interested by this. It says, better is possible.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you why?
Yes, please.
Because from doing all the door knocks, and I think we were looking at the possibility of we talk about change a lot. And I think what people are experiencing when they look overseas, to what's happening in the US, and we have to qualify what we mean by change. And when we talk about change in longer sentences, we do that. But when you've got a billboard, you need a message that's super fast, that I think is a value statement, which is about hope, and which actually she tells people who you are and what you're there for. And I don't want to. So because this is a Labor seat, and of course we want to keep Dutton out. We don't want to, we want to be the party that Labor has to go to form government. That's what we want to do. So we want to push Labor to be better, right? So if here in a hyper-marginal seat, I say something like, vote for change or something, or using one of the change messages, like if you want change, you've got to vote for it, without anything else around it, just that, it makes me vulnerable then to the kind of misinformation that Labor uses, which is
change equals Dutton.
Exactly.
Change equals a Liberal government,
exactly.
Which is not what the Greens are supporting.
That's not what it is. So I made the executive decision myself with all my experience. But I just wait, because of what we're hearing at the doors and what people want to hear is they want to feel empowered to vote Green, because it's going to keep Dutton out, and it's going to make Labor better. And people need to believe that's possible, because this election, I was just saying to someone before, it feels critical. Like, if we don't get through at the next election, we're not going to be able, the independents are going to be, if we don't get a balance of power, that electoral reform will stay unchallenged. It means the independent movement will probably shrivel and die. It means that the Greens are going to find it tougher, and it gives the two majors a stranglehold on the political system, which basically gives a free pass for all the, the billionaires and the corporations that are just enjoying rolling around in the mud of their vested interest and privilege. So it is super important. And the message is it's about working together and making Labor better.
Yeah.
And keeping Dutton out. Like that's super important. I wish Labor would actually talk more about keeping Dutton out, because they've got to stop focusing on the Greens and start looking at the near and present danger, which is, the possibility of a Dutton government.
Well, yes, Justine Elliott, certainly, who's been the Labor MP in the seat of Richmond since 2004 and is a right-aligned Labor MP, obviously knows that the threat of the Greens is very real in her seat. And I certainly have seen, it looks like she has expended a lot of energy and resources attacking the Greens. And I think you're right. I don't think that really is, the best idea for her, and it's not what the mood of the electorate is, but it kind of sits with, that's why I like Better is Possible, because I think we deserve better and voters deserve better than just the back and forth between the major parties, which is like the LNP being like, Labor's, if you're feeling like life's shit, it's because Labor's shit, vote for us. And Labor being like, don't vote for the LNP because it's going to take us backwards and that's scary and that's bad. And it's like, where's the hope? Isn't there a better way? And I know obviously I'm in a bubble, but I do feel like this election, there is a growing recognition that there are other options and better is possible. And don't buy the lines from the Labor Party, from the major parties, both of them, that better things aren't possible, and just accept what you've got and vote out of fear, and that's it.
You're absolutely right. And that sense of when you get to a door and some people, and you're speaking to people, and some people have given up belief that anything they do will make any difference or change. And you're going, when you believe that, they win. They want, the major parties that they don't want you to push back and question them. They want you to feel defeated. It's that feeling like you can't come back and push back. And it's so beautiful to see people be empowered. I recently, it's particularly small, like us. We feel like we're powerless, but there's more of us. Recently, just a friend of mine who was in her mid-90s died, and she became part of. She sort of was part of a fight for a retirement facility here, which had been community owned, that the big corp and bought originally, and the corporate body that was managing them tried to do a bit of a takeover, kick them out and redevelop it. And the community, and there were 11 older people led by a 96-year-old woman who's this beautiful woman. And the amazing thing was the community backed them. We had all layers of government, including our state Greens MP, and they did the impossible, was they beat the corporation. And she said this beautiful thing recently to another friend. She, not long before she died, she basically said they thought they were going to get rid of us, but we got rid of them.
Yeah.
I just think that is the coolest thing. Like, if a bunch of older people on walking frames can have the solidarity to do that work, then I just find that is the most beautiful, allegorical, true tale, actually, about what's possible. Like,
yes,
we can do it. Like, we can actually lead the change. And so I absolutely do believe better is possible. I'm an absolute optimist. I never settle for less. I think you just keep pushing for what seems impossible. And it becomes possible. I mean, for billionaires, no one ever tells them not to shoot for the stars.
That's right.
They literally create rocket ships and fly up there.
How do we live in a world where it is simultaneously acceptable to pretend that an ordinary person could amass billions of dollars of wealth just through hard work, and that they should shoot for that? And when you say tax the billionaires, well, you're stifling aspiration. And yet at the same time, a world where everyone could see the dentist for free, or have a roof over their head.
Yeah, that's like, are you crazy? What's going on with that idea? Yeah,
it's a bit of a double standard.
It's a massive double standard. And I think people are so used to getting nothing and getting so little. They're used to letting the privileged and the entitled kind of waltz through without any tax or check in place to actually kind of go, you know what, that's not fair. Because I really believe in this system. When you're making, $67,000 an hour, when you're making that money, we're paying for you.
Yes.
People that have no housing, people that are sleeping in their cars, we're paying for you. People that have lived through climate crisis, like the floods we've lived through here, that's us paying for your $67,000 an hour. So taxing those people and bringing that money back into the system so that people can get their teeth fixed or so that people can have access to housing, that just makes common sense to me. That is not radical. That is almost conservative because it's sensible. It's radical to think you can be a billionaire and profiteer while a single mum lives in her car and that somehow you have no relationship to that outcome.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, and this is the thing, that if you can convince enough people that it is possible, then you can win. And I mean, I will say, like, I look at the seat of Richmond is one of those difficult ones where it's Labor has traditionally come first, and now the Greens, last time were in second place, but the Nationals are third. And so preferences wise, you would kind of need, like, my understanding is you would need to leapfrog Labor and push Labor into third, and that's the path of victory. But that's more than a 1.3% swing. So explain to me how the 1.3 works.
So the way it works, we have a 1.8% swing, which is what we sort of say is how it works. And generally what happens once you've allocated the preferences is the Nats come first.
Yeah, right.
But Labor holds it from the second position. So the Greens push Labor into first position with their preferences.
I see.
And
so if it was the other way around, then the Greens would
so
win.
we're wanting to swap. We have to come second to come first. And that way we outrank the Nats then. It's a three-cornered contest, but even though it was traditionally for years a national seat, with the change in demographic here and the rise in the Green vote, and Labor holds this seat, let's not forget, because of us.
Yeah.
Because of the Greens. And
That's
you go,
right.
like, if it wasn't for us, they wouldn't hold this seat. We have done so much work here to retain this seat. And they only ever won this seat, in the first place off the Nats because an independent called Helen Caldicott, who's a nuclear activist, ran as an independent and came really close and unseated. I think it was then Charles Blunt, who was the leader of the National Party, and her preferences put a very unsuspecting Neville Newell in position. So it's a bit of a wacky seat, this one.
Yeah.
And there's always some very interesting independents that jump in at the last moment to see who runs. So it'll be interesting. It's it's really a race between the Labor MP of 20 years, myself, and the Nationals, but more likely between that second and third position.
Yeah, yeah. And when you say it's a wacky seat, like it so is, because obviously it's got Byron Shire, which is notionally progressive. It's a hippie area, the Northern Rivers, but it also, there are elements of the Northern Rivers that are traditionally like they're rural, they're farming land, they're kind of agricultural, and then there's also there's an older population in areas like Ballina and Tweed that aren't traditionally the Greens voting base. But the other odd part about it is people would associate particularly Mullumbimby and Byron with a little bit of a conspiratorial streak. There's kind of there's an anti-vax movement there. There was kind of a COVID conspiratorial thing, that 5G, whatever, all of those things. And although that new age kind of conspiracy for a long time was associated more with the left of politics, Trumpism and the far right have really adopted that. And there is now this like new age to far right pipeline that I wonder, do you come across that much when you're out door knocking or in the community? Yeah.
Not as much as you certainly come across it still. There's still people concerned about the COVID vaccine, but they're in a minority. There's, and you have these conversations, and I often go in this community, you've got every right, like that conspiratorial mindset it's well placed, but it's the billionaires and corporations. Like what's happening is in plain sight. We're not being sprayed by chemtrails ahead. We're buying food full of plastic where, big corporations have been held unaccountable for the fact that, there's forever chemicals in our food, in our wrappers, in our breast milk. Like you're going up, it's not meaning to spray us. I think that sense that of what's happened is definitely there. So there's people within that new age kind of movement, and sometimes they will fall to the right, where their preferences then will go to often the Nationals, interestingly. But then people can make their own preference allocation. And what I've found out is people are very surprising. Like I love that about our conversations when we go door knocking is that what we've done this time, which is really exciting. Like where I am, there's parts of this electorate where I got 60% of the vote, 50%,
Yeah. Wow.
Which is really large. And then down to 26%, 25%. And they're the places where we go, okay, where we're getting 25, let's go door knock there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's up into the north around Pottsville and Kingscliff and Murwillumbah. And then going up into Tweed Heads. Now there's areas, the Greens have this theory of you fish where there's fish. So you door knock where the idea would be if there's 50% vote, you door knock there because the chance of growing that is higher. But what we've found is most people have made their mind up in those places already and they're quite rusted on whether they're green or they're conspiratorial or whatever. This is just what we're sort of finding. So we've been going into areas we've never knocked before up in Tweed where it was kind of like, it was a bit scary because we didn't have any data on these doors we're knocking on. And what we're finding is, and we're getting like, they're amazing. And when we told the volleys we're going out doing it, I thought no one would turn up, but everyone's like, we want to do this. This is going to be exciting. It's like being in some sort of reality TV door knock experience. But what we're finding is an enormous amount of persuadables. Like there's people who don't know much about the Greens, who are very disconnected from the political conversation, who when you talk to them about issues and you go, and then you kind of explain where we stand, they go, yeah, you're the only person that's come to my door and I do actually agree with this, with the pamphlet you're giving me, these are the issues I care about too. So you might do 20 doors and we're getting out of 20 doors, we're getting up to five people like that who haven't made their mind up, who are sitting in that middle where they're quite prepared to come across and vote green. So it's probably some of the most exciting door knocking I've done. In the past, I find I'm door knocking and I'm talking to people who are already going to vote green.
Which is nice enough. Like it's not, when you talk to someone who's like, oh, I'm a Green supporter, you're like, great.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, next.
It's beautiful. Like it's really good for your heart when you do that. And that's good for training door knockers when you get people that are really on side. But in an election that's this important and this close, we want those persuaded, the people who are sitting there, they have no political allegiances anywhere and they're affected by the cost of living crisis. They care about the environment and they want the people who represent them to actually care about the issues that they care about and actually represent those issues. So having those conversations has been really powerful and we've fed those back to the campaign. And that's why I came back with the better is possible slogan for our billboards, because I went, this is what we're actually doing. This is the value statement. This is what people are saying they want. And this is what I really believe we can deliver. And this is the mission of the Greens. We're there to make, government better. We're there to help. We want to get in minority and we want to get that right sitting Labor, and push them back over to the left.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's people in Labor that would love to see that happen too.
Yes, absolutely. That's the thing. Yeah. And they have been told that is not possible.
It's so sad being in the left of Labor. Just like your hope and your soul would just be withering up.
It would be. But no, you're right. I mean, I obviously having door knocked a lot in Brisbane, and I have to say it is at a point where we have knocked so much in that inner city area that I've been going out to the suburbs just a little bit further out that just haven't been door knocked as much by the Greens. And the difference is so stark and it is so everyone's like, you've got to get out to, these other suburbs in Brisbane because you're talking to people who maybe this is the first time that they have just heard what the Greens policies are without the fucking spin from the major parties or the Murdoch media. And would you believe it, when they hear common sense policies, they're like, oh, that sounds pretty good. And when you hear that, oh, when Labor says that if you vote for the Greens, you'll get Dutton, that's nonsense. You don't have to vote for Labor. You can vote for the Greens and keep Dutton out. And they're like, oh, great. Well, yeah, I'll do that then. If I'd known that was an option, I'll just do that.
And the most powerful thing is because the media, has a particular line, it continues with those kind of misinformation basically, and people aren't properly informed and they're being, fed, things that aren't true. And everything you see represented about the Greens is nowhere near what we're doing. And I always say, one of the things, when people vote for the Greens, they don't vote for us to go to Parliament and wear a fancy suit and just sit there and kind of, occasionally pop into the frame on the camera and wave and go, whatever you want, thumbs up. We're there to do the job of making sure that policy and that legislation is robust, that it is fit for purpose, that we make sure that the people who are going to be hurt by it or impacted are properly considered and consulted. So we do the heavy lifting. And, when governments are trying to sneak through, inadequate policy, rather than them taking responsibility for that, it's so easy for it to be messaged in the public. And I think the HAF was a really great example of, the work that we did to get money straight away.
Legislation, yeah.
In that the Housing Australia Future Fund, to get money into the community, so that we could have housing build now, not sit there on an investment fund and hope that it returns something so we could have housing. That's the kind of thing that's difficult to message in, it doesn't come across in most newspapers, or the newspapers that most people read or on their newsfeed. But when you go door to door and you speak to people, you're able to undo a lot of that misinformation, because people trust people at the end of the day more than they trust, the media, I guess, or anyone. Like, people want to hear it from people they trust. And that's why door knockers and volunteers are so important, because they kind of relate to people from their own community, and they're more likely to go, oh, okay, I hadn't heard that. I didn't realize that,
Yeah.
So you've got to make sure, my main thing is, if people don't agree with me, which they don't, or they start saying things, I'm really careful not to make people feel stupid or uninformed, just asking them some questions. I ended up asking a man the other day, and he was really one of those cases where he was just going off about his neighbours being on the NDIS and someone else was on Centrelink, but they were going across the road every day to the club, on his walking frame. He was really punching down.
Yeah.
And I could see how angry he was at all these people that are not, these are people that are on government benefits who are probably struggling themselves, but he couldn't bear seeing them having opportunities.
That he didn't, maybe.
So I just went, I can see this really upsets you. Can I just ask what's happened to you? Has something happened in your life that makes you really that really upsets you, that makes you look at people across the road? Because that the person that's delivered, sometimes we're angry at the wrong people. And then he told me a story of what had happened in his family where, his father had been a veteran who was never recognised, died at the age of 30, and his mum was left without any help as a single mum of 4 kids, and they'd struggled through. And I went, I said, that's the system to be angry at, not be angry up, don't be angry down. But he's still not going to vote Green. But it was a really good conversation, because very often people's experiences in life can put them into a particular channel or a pipe of how they think, and it colours, I don't think he was necessarily a terrible, hateful person, but he was certainly expressing a lot of it.
Yeah.
So I had to put my big girl compassion boots on and work it out. And that's something I love about being in the Greens, because I think it's essential to the work we do, is that we go deeper all the time with, in a party that has integrity, that doesn't use misinformation. That's what we do. And we kind of see the impacts across the community of people who are left to struggle.
Yeah.
And it creates division, rather than looking up and pushing back at the powers, they start pushing back at each other.
Yeah.
And that just serves vested interest.
Yep. They want us distracted. That's
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yes, I mean, I have certainly been impressed. I don't know if many people would know this, but you, even after having that 2022 experience where, as you say, like losing fucking sucks, it would be horrible. You fall down a little bit, but you picked yourself back up very quickly and were one of the first, if not the first, federal campaign to get pre-selected again. You pretty much haven't stopped. Like you have been in the
No, I
community
haven't.
running since then. And so when you talk about, connection to the community and that being important, I think you also lived that out in the way that you've continued campaigning, and I really hope that that will pay off
Thank you.
at the election.
I hope that it does. And I actually would have to say for anyone, I had to push pretty hard to get through early and to actually put forward a case about why you'd start this early. And it's about momentum. It's about the resources that your volunteers and that you build. And in a winnable seat, it's realizing what you can do, which isn't just about winning. It's about building hope and community. And it's about, building all those relationships that I could build. I've done the work now. I've put in another 2 years I've attended meetings. Every person that had a concern, I've gone and sat with them and had a coffee. I've fundraised. I've done shifts at kitchens. I've been engaged in creating some change for some people. But I was able to show them what we can do and what I can do without as a candidate, so they could see that I had integrity and that what I was prepared to do and that what I would do as an MP. And I think that that's convincing. People will meet you then. Like people go, I've seen what you've given. It really has been amazing. We have so many volunteers and people that are just, our door knocks now, we're running out of folders. We turned up the other day and people hadn't even RSVP'd. We had double the amount of people that were on the RSVP. We had to tear all our folders in half and actually go out there. But it's exciting. And people love the culture.
Yeah.
Of being involved in something that, is good. I love starting early and I actually feel much less stressed about where we're going because we've done the work and we've built the relationships and we have the momentum to know where we're going. There's nothing that I wished I'd done that I haven't done.
Yeah, I love that.
Do you know what I mean? And when you throw everything at it, you got to know that.
Yeah.
You got to not go, oh, I should have gone and met with those people. Oh, I really let that one slip. What did I do? That's all done.
Yeah, you want to, and on election night, you want to know you've done everything you can. And
exactly.
I hope you win. And even if you don't win, I think that the work that you have done in, as you say, building community and building hope will have been worthwhile. I still hope you bloody win, though.
I hope I win.
Yeah.
But you know that what we're building it's always succession. Is that if I move it this much and then I move it that much, next time someone bangs on the door, it will come down. So we're in a movement and there's other people. It's never just about us.
Yeah.
It's always about creating somewhere for other people to come through.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. So I hope to get through. I intend to get through. If I don't, then who knows what's next. But the door will be hanging on a hinge,
yes,
flapping in the wind.
Yeah. So, I mean,
ready for the taking.
Before we let you go, on that note, to make sure that, anyone who can knows that they gave everything that they could to get you in before the election, what's the best way to support you right now?
Well, it depends. If you're from outside of the region, donating to our campaign, it would be amazing. We still haven't got all our donations in yet for our campaign. So you can always go to Mandy4Richmond.com.
We'll put the link in the show notes, folks.
Or if you want to volunteer, if you're in this region, just go to the same place and actually select volunteer. I think getting on our Facebook pages is always really great. Just, ask to go on our newsletters and find out more. Even if you're outside of the area, we'd love to have you, sort of be part. This will be the first lower house seat, for New South Wales when we turn Richmond green. So it's actually historic. And, we are the kind of, this is the kind of, it's a real kind of interesting coastal counterculture. It's a really interesting seat, So I think
deserves an interesting MP.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Full of creatives. I mean, we have a really huge population of musicians and artists and jugglers and comedians, and it's a very creative community as well. So
yeah,
it's incredible. So so people can get engaged by actually doing that and follow us. But stay tuned if you want to come up and be part of our campaign and have a door knocking holiday. We've had people do that in the past.
Come stay in Murwillumbah.
Yeah, exactly.
Check out the mountains.
Yeah,
and
we'll get
go
some
on a
billets
knock.
for you.
Sounds lovely.
Love saying billets.
Yeah.
But it's a really fun thing to do. So even if you want to come, we've got people that come from Sydney and Victoria that come for the weekend, and they have a holiday by the beach for the weekend, and they come door knocking with us on the weekend. That's amazing. We've had quite a few people do that. So if you want a door knocking getaway,
I should probably bloody knock down when I'm down there one weekend. Anyway,
come down and have a knock.
Someone should nag me to do that. Yeah, I've never knocked in Richmond, so I should come and do it. Look, that's probably all we have time for. Thank you so much, Mandy, for coming on the show again and telling us about your campaign. We'll have more of these candidate bonus episodes coming out over the next month or two. Who knows? Until there's an election, we still don't know when it's going to be called at this point. But we'll chuck Mandy's website in the show notes where you can support her work. And if you want to follow and support Serious Danger, find us at Serious Danger AU on all the socials. Thanks, Mandy.
Thank you so much. Thank you. See you on the other side.
On the other side, yeah. We could have you back on as an MP. That would be good.
Yeah, I would love that.
Serious Danger Australia.